I have to admit, look, I like standing in front of people, but it's not always fun standing in front of this lot of people. Every time I come up here, I try to think of Paul's advice to Timothy, because there's so much wisdom in front of me, and I don't think I've got that much to share, but I'm hoping that you can go on a journey with me as we go through the Word of God. So not my words. I couldn't put it any better than what we are about to go through. So bear with me. And if after the lesson you disagree on the point or you think otherwise, please feel free and ask less. No me. Idolatry. Now, it's always interesting to have a group here that's so diverse, because there are things that will resonate well with one group and also well with the other. Do I end the point? Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's it. So I thought maybe we start off by just being on the same page, possibly, about what it means to have idols in our lives and what is an idol. Now, I know that term nowadays, in the nowadays 20th century, the media will try and give it a slightly different slang. Oh, he or she is my idol. But the word means what it means. Idolatry is worshipping of idols. Now, I think most of us go, but hang on. I don't have a little shaped thing in my bedroom that I go down and prostrate to. But just bear with me and let's go through it all to the very end. And then we'll see if we can all take lessons out of it. So an idol could be an image. It could be a representation of a god. Anything that you use in worship. Now, this is where the culture differences come in. Well, where I come from, this is still a thing. It's a real thing. Every family, every household, especially in the country, what we would call villages, they have one. And they'll have their rules. And they'll have things you have to do, they have things you don't have to do. But if you bring it to the Western world, it is still here too. It's around us, and we may think that we don't see it. But again, when I start listing them, you probably go, oh yeah, actually that makes sense. So think of all the religions we have in the world and the things that let's go to what? Buddhism? Let's start mentioning them. There is something that they are worshiping, right? It's still around us. It is so very much around us. But I think for us as Christians, the definition I want us to really stick to is the very last one there. If we are worshiping or devoting ourselves to anything other than the Creator, that's idol worshiping. That's idolatry. So then I thought, what's the best way for us to have a look at this and look at what the dangers are? And I couldn't think of anything but go back to the good book. Now, I do slides because these are actually my notes as well. It's easier for me to then think it through. So it's not just for your benefit, it's also for my benefit. Now, we'll start off by the very first, when God gave that commandment to the Israelites. So come with me to Exodus chapter 20. Now, I know, we are not under the 10 Commandments. I know we are not under the old law, but just bear with me. Come with me to Exodus chapter 20. Now, this is where God was giving the Israelites the 10 Commandments. And in verse 4, he says, "You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters under the earth." It covers everything. Do not make for yourself. Now, God gave these instructions to the Israelites. So we're looking at the example and the mistakes they made and all of that. There are other instances here. This gets repeated so many times. Let's go to Leviticus 26, verse 1. You shall not make idols for yourself or erect an image or pillar, and you shall not set up a figured stone in your land to bow down to it. For I am the Lord your God. We can read all the other ones that are listed as well, and it says exactly that. So I'll just read one more. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 25. The carved images of their gods you shall burn with fire. Now, this is God instructing them on what to do when they were claiming the promised land. You shall not covet the silver or the gold that is on them, or take it for yourselves, lest you be ensnared by it. For it is an abomination to the Lord your God. So Israel were given ample warnings, commands. If we think of all the prophets, from Isaiah down to, you name them, God was trying to bring them back to himself. But Israel didn't listen. We start off with the golden calf. First thing they did, right? That fella Moses is gone for too long. Exodus chapter 32. Moses is going to give them, or to get them, the 10 Commandments on the tablets. He's gone to the presence of God, and everything's happened. And we think this is the best time, but no. It didn't take too long. Exodus 32, verse 1 to 6. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, this man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So Aaron said to them, gives the instructions, they bring their stuff, and on it went. So he makes for them the golden calf. How quickly did they forget who brought them out of Egypt? How quickly did they forget who actually led them there in the first place? How quickly they forgot the promises that God made to them? Numbers 25. Now, this is when they haven't even reached where they were supposed to go yet. They've been advised so many times. But in Numbers, they decide, well, you know what? I think we want to worship something else. So in Numbers 25, not 26, 25. Numbers 25 from verse 1 to verse 3. While Israel lived in Shittim, the people began to whore with the daughters of Moab. These invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel yoked himself to Baal of Peor, and that's a god of the Moabites. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. They've been warned, right? But they decided, well, first the golden calf and then this. And we would think, okay, maybe that was the end of it, right? No, that wasn't the end. They get into the promised land. And on many occasions, they worship the Baal, they worship the Asherah, they do a whole bunch of other ones. But the one I want us to read is Jeroboam. I think that's probably a cautionary tale of God promising you something and you going the opposite way completely to lose all that promise. 1 Kings 12, verse 25 to 33. So we are at the journey where now Moses is gone. Sorry. David is gone. Solomon is gone. Rehoboam is now king. And he's advised by the elders, by those with gray hair that have experienced everything. And he goes, nah, I'm not listening. So what God does, rips out 10 of the kingdoms out of his hands, and it's given to Jeroboam. So the 10 tribes to the north, that from here on gets known as Israel, and the 2 tribes to the south known as Judah. But this is what Jeroboam then decides to do. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim and lived there. That becomes the capital of Israel, the 10 northern tribes. Those are my words. And he went out from there and beat Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now the kingdom will turn back to the house of David. If these people go up to offer sacrifices in the temple of the Lord at Jerusalem, then the heart of these people will turn again to their Lord, to Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they will kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah. So the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. And he said to the people, you have gone up to Jerusalem long enough. Behold, your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And he set one in Bethel, and the other he put in Dan. Then this thing became a sin, for the people went as far as Dan to be before one. He also made temples of high places and appointed priests from among all the people who were not of the Levites. And Jeroboam appointed the feast on the 15th day of the 8th month, like the feast that was in Judah. And he offered sacrifices on the altar. So he did in Bethel, sacrificing to the calves that he made. I'll end it there. It is very disappointing to see when God has promised someone, I'll give you a kingship and establish a kingdom. This is what he decides to do. But what's more important is to note how quickly the 10 tribes actually fell for it. Oh, it's too far. Jerusalem is just way too far south. Doing that thing, it's just too much work. Following God, it's too hard. Why am I always the one that gets trampled on? It's too hard. It's too difficult. Let me do what comes easy. But even here, though, it says they went as far as Dan. Now, if you look at the map, Dan, if I'm not mistaken, was way up north. I know as they traveled into the land, Manasseh decided, so there was a half tribe, and Ephraim got split up. One side of the Jordan, if I'm not mistaken, the other one. So there were tribes that were all the way up north. They would go as far as that to go and bow down to, hear, O Israel, these are your gods that brought you out of Egypt. Really? So Israel was warned, and Israel failed to listen. And they suffered the consequence. I'm not going to read 2 Kings, and I'm happy to provide these verses to anyone that wants them. But the 10 tribes to the north were taken into Assyrian captivity. I don't have the exact years, but from Jeroboam, everything just went downhill from there. Every single king in the north was evil. They worshipped one false god after the other, and they did all manner of things until God sent Assyria, and they got wiped completely off the face. There wasn't even a remnant because they were gone. And then Judah when we have the hot and cold, one king is sort of okay, another one is very good, another one is really bad. They also suffered similar. Babylon came and Babylon took them away. What I want to read though is Ahab and Jezebel. So come with me to 1 Kings 22. Now, we all may know the story of Ahab and Jezebel. Of course, Ahab was an evil king. Of course, he did the wrong things before God. But let's just read of the consequences that he suffered. 1 Kings 22, and I'm reading from verse 29. Yep, 29. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat the king of Judah went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into battle, but you wear your robes. Well, it wasn't uncommon, but it was deception. And he did that. And the king of Israel disguised himself and went into battle. Now the king of Assyria had commanded the 32 captains of his chariot. Fight with neither small nor great, but only with the king of Israel. And when the captains of the chariot saw Jehoshaphat, they said, it is surely the king of Israel. So they turned to fight against him, and Jehoshaphat cried out. And when the captains of the chariot saw that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. But a certain man drew his bow at random and struck the king of Israel between the scale armor and the breastplate. Therefore, he said to the driver of his chariot, turn around, carry me out of the battle, for I am wounded. And the battle continued that day, and the king was propped up in his chariot facing the Syrians until at the evening he died. And the blood, and the blood of the wound flowed into the bottom of the chariot. And about sunset, a cry went out through the army, every man to his city and every man to his country. They were surrendering. So the king died and was brought to Samaria. And he goes on about how he was buried and all that. Now, Ahab was warned multiple times. We didn't read the examples up here of what happened, but the bells and the Asherahs in 1 Kings 16, that was all Ahab. Even before this battle that happened, he was warned. The prophet came, the prophet told him, and it's like, oh, this guy always prophesies bad things about me. He never says anything good about me, so he didn't listen. In his wisdom, he thought, I'm just going to hide and I'll still be saved. But that didn't happen. I think he got off easy. Jezebel, on the other hand, didn't. 2 Kings chapter 9. 2 Kings 9, from verse 30. Now, God had appointed and anointed Jehu, who was one of the military leaders at the time, effectively to carry out his justice. And so he did. I think in the nowadays world, when we think of the things that Jehu did, we'll probably say that, oh, he was a war criminal and that he was just killing people left, right, center. But he was carrying out God's justice. And the way Jezebel died pretty much reflective of what she did when she was alive. So 2 Kings 9 from verse 30. When Jehu came to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it. Bearing in mind this time Ahab is already dead. Now Ahab was Jezebel's husband, the king. And she painted her eyes and adorned her head and looked out of the window. And Jehu entered the gates and said, Is it peace? Jehu entered the gates. And as Jehu entered the gate, she said, Is it peace, you Zimri, murderer of your master? And he lifted up his eyes to the window and said, Who is on my side? Who? 2 or 3 eunuchs looked at him. He said, Throw her down. So they threw her down. And some of her blood spattered on the wall and on the horses, and they trampled on her. It goes on, it's very gruesome. But effectively, they couldn't even get the whole body to bury. Jezebel did so much more evil that nowadays, if you want to say someone is really evil, she's become the word that can be used for evil. Warning after warning after warning wasn't heeded. So there was punishment, there was a consequence. In 2 Kings 10, all males, and Ahab had a lot of them. He had 70 sons. Every single one of them was put to the sword. Now, God doesn't just go about eliminating people just willy-nilly. So we have to know there was a reason. We have to know that these sons most likely followed their parents in every single thing that they did. And so they got wiped off. Now, I said at the very beginning, you probably would be thinking, but yeah, I don't have an idol at home. I haven't got an image. I haven't got anything. So, why is that important? Point here. I worked it out finally. Point here. Well, 1 Corinthians. Please come with me to 1 Corinthians. I like how Brian kept quiet the whole time as I was struggling. The one that got it, he smiled. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 from verse 1. For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and they all passed through the sea, and were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them. The rock was Christ. Nevertheless, with most of them God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things happened, or these things took place as an example for them, that we might not desire evil as they did. Do not be idolaters as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Now that's not just any normal sort of playing. This is when they were worshiping the idols. We must not indulge in sexual immorality as some of them did, and 23,000 fell in a single day. We must not put Christ to the test as some of them did, and were destroyed by serpents. Nor grumble as some of them did, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now these things happened to them as an example, but they are written down for our instruction, to whom the end of the age has come. Now, remember at the very beginning, I may not have an idol, but is there something else that I am worshiping that I'm putting above God? If you are, if I am, or it's just as good as having a cast image in a corner of your bedroom that you bow down to. Because when we have split attention, which we'll come to, we cannot serve two masters. We can't decide. Now, I know the verse in Luke talks about money. We can't have, okay, God on one hand and then something else on the other hand, and one moment we'll lift this one up a little bit. And the danger of having idolatry in our lives. So, again, I'll use the examples that I know of, is that we will only have follow what God wants us to do. So back home, when people are doing those things and falling down to those little gods that they have in their rooms, this is what happens. They'll go to church. They'll be sitting with you like this. Until you wrong them, then they go to their little gods and they go and do what they call curse you. Right? For us, yes, we may not go to our little gods and do that, but what that means is we have one foot in here with God, and we have another foot in there with something else. Being lukewarm, what happens? We'll be spat out. We can't love two masters or serve two masters equally. You've got to choose one. It's up to us. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? God is not forcing any of us to be sitting in here. He won't force us. It's free will is free will, right? And I think that's the beauty of it. But all the reasons. One of the reasons why I like to drive is everything you see when you're driving. It's all around us. The reason for us to choose right is all around us. We cannot serve two masters. Luke 16. I'm going to read that. Verse 13. No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. You cannot serve God and something else. And when I say something else, I mean your family. I mean your job, your status in life. I mean everything. It's either God or not. And so when he says, I am a jealous God, let's not interpret that jealous God to be, oh, jealous is not a good thing for you to have, because there is no one like him. Remember our reading at the start. In Isaiah 44, there is no one like him. If we can find one that has got the ability, the power, the authority that he's got, feel free. Go ahead and worship him. But there is none. There is none. So it's either we go with him or we don't. The choice is ours. But trying to have both, that's not going to work. Joshua is one of my all-time favorite leaders. I think we can have a leadership class session sermon on Joshua, and anyone that aspires to be a leader can take a few lessons from Joshua. But I like what Joshua said in Joshua 24, verse 15. Let me actually start from verse 14. Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Is that a decision that you are making? As for me, it doesn't matter what's happening around me. It doesn't matter what or the direction the world is going. It doesn't matter what, unfortunately, some of my family members are doing, I will serve the Lord. Is that a decision that you have made or you are making? And it's a decision that we have to make constantly. Did it again. What consumes your life? What is taking a lot of your time? Now, please, do not get me wrong here. We are required to devote our time to our families and take care of what God has given us. So don't get me wrong. We've got a job to do, we do it. You have employment, do your job and do it well. But where is your focus? Where is your focus when you're doing all of those things? Is the focus on self, on something else, on some theology, or where is your focus? What do you value most as your treasured possession? What is it that to you is the most important thing in your life? I think in my very short life, there are some very important decisions that you make in your life. Very important. I can think of maybe about 3 of them. Whether you worship God or not, who you get married to, and what job you do. Now you can add to that where you live and on you go. But are all these things where you put your value? Is that where you think your possession is? Because let's remember, what you treasure the most is where you're going to devote your time. And that's why devoting our time or treasuring God and our fellow Christians will make us want to focus more on what we have with us here. But if that's not the case, I want to read Numbers 25 because Phinehas did something that God praised him for. Now, we're all human, and yes, sin can creep into our lives. Now, when it does creep into our life, I want us to try and remember the zeal, how swift Phinehas acted to uphold God's favor. What he did to make sure that God was held up, and God praised him for that. We need to have that same zeal in our lives. When I notice something ain't right, let's get rid of it that quickly. Dragging our feet is not going to work. Numbers 25. And I'm reading from verse 6. And behold, one of the people of Israel came and brought a Midianite woman to his family in the sight of Moses, and they sight the whole congregation of the people of Israel, while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Before I continue, let me set the scene here. So Israel has sinned greatly before God, and God was really angry with them. And they're trying to repent. And here was this guy, just jolly, nothing's happened. And he was just continuing it. So this is what Phinehas did. When Phinehas, the son of Elias, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up and left the congregation and took a spear in his hand. He went after the man of Israel into the chambers and pierced both of them, the man and the woman, through her belly. Thus the plague on the people of Israel was stopped. Nevertheless, those who died by the plague were 24,000. And the Lord said to Moses, Phinehas, the son of Elias, the son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the people of Israel, in that he was jealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not consume the people of Israel with my jealousy. Therefore say, behold, I give to him my covenant of peace. And it shall be to him and to his descendants after him the covenant of a perpetual priesthood, because he was jealous for his God and made atonement for the people of Israel. He acted very swiftly, is what I'm trying to get to. He didn't sit there and go, oh, maybe tomorrow. Or New Year resolution. When we get to 31 December and we're going to New Year, I will make a change then. He acted and acted swiftly. It is very, very important for us to make sure that we have our focus straight. Because if we don't, the consequence of making the wrong decision, second last point there, is eternal damnation. If we don't care about our souls, then we can be lackadaisical about it. We can be blasé about it. We can go, yeah, it doesn't matter. We can be, as unfortunately most things in the world now is, everything is sort of now a joke. Everything is now taken very liberally. But worshiping God and choosing right, it can't be one of those. Because there's a danger if we choose wrong. There's a danger if we don't act properly. Let us stand and sing.